All right, welcome to Let's Go. It is Alivia Roberts, Harrison Lilly. It's not in with us today, but we have Amy with us. And Amy, I'm so used to saying Amy Mitchell. It is
Amy Frantom now.
Amy Frantom. And so she actually works with Harrison. She runs everything in his world. So we're going to have an opportunity to learn about Amy and just her different perspectives on things, and we're just going to have a little casual talk. And so we appreciate you guys watching and being with us here today. And so I was going to start it off. So Amy doesn't know this story yet. So Connor, who is our behind the camera guy, Connor, get a call from Connor and this morning. He says, "Are you here?" And we film at Harrison's house. And so I said, "No, not yet." And he goes, "Well, I think his daughter may be." And I was like, because I'm thinking first, oh, they're still out of town. Then I'm like, no, oh, they're back. And he goes, "Well, I hear something in the bedroom." And the last time I was here, my nephews came with me and they had watched YouTube in her bedroom. And I thought we had, shut everything off. But I was like, well, maybe it's just the TV from that. And then I got worried because I'm like, can you imagine if you're a 17-year-old girl here by yourself? And then some
you guys, and then
even before us, it's just some guy walks in. So I told him, I was like, keep me on the phone.
You could have called me. Could have told you who that was.
Oh yeah. Well, that's right. And because you've So and so I said, so I was like, so keep me on the phone, but just yell out like, "Hey, don't worry, I'm, THL, I work with Harrison. We're going to do a podcast today." Yeah.
Promise we're not going to.
Yeah. And
you will blow the place up.
And so he did that. And then he was like, "Well, the TV's off now." And I was like, well, maybe, I don't know. But I said, okay. So he was like, "Well, I'm in the basement. We're going to do it." I was like, okay. I said, "Well, I'm going to head over because if it is her, at least there'll be another female here. Not that she knows me that well, but at least there's another female.
She'll know who's here."
Yeah. And so I call Harrison and he doesn't pick up. And I was like, so I called Christina and I was like, and she's like, hello. And I was like, "Hey, this is going to sound weird. Is your daughter maybe at Harrison's?" And I told her, and she was like, "Oh, no. And she mentioned the roommate or the guy that's staying with him for a little bit. And I was like, "Oh yeah, Harrison told me." I'd completely forgot.
Yeah.
And, but I just, in my head, I'm going, I could just see like a 17-year-old girl go, like underneath her bed going, "Oh my God, do I call 911 or do I, is this just somebody that, my dad's person over here?" So so the little drama this morning. So, that's right. That's right.
Oh, okay. Everybody's good.
That's one of those. It was like drama, but not really. But then that was Harrison called me back right before he started and said, "Hey," and I'm like, "No, it's fine." And I forgot about him staying over here, and I was thinking like we're freaking Addison out, but I think it's all taken care of. So, but yeah, so that's the way we started out this morning. So the podcast should be pretty interesting. It's got to be now.
I like it.
Okay, so Amy, tell us a little bit about what you do now and your background, because you've got a pretty interesting work background. You've got a pretty interesting personal background as well. Mm-hmm. And we got a little, and so we're going to have a little Cajun. I don't know. What do you refer to yourself? She's from down south.
Yes. Originally born in Houma, was in Lafayette for 15 years, but I did graduate from Mangum High School because my mother married somebody from Mangum, and so my parents were divorced and just kind of always moving and all over the place. So I'm the director of operations for THLT and all things Harrison. He does lots of things, and
yes.
I keep all those things, on track and keep him on track and organized and running the company, running the Airbnbs, overseeing those things, overseeing all that stuff from the staging company to the snow cone stand to the production company to all things.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course. Yes, I had a title background. I was in title for I think 18 years. I can't keep up. Yeah. Worked for a title company down south in Lafayette. Learned a lot and grew a lot personally. Very thankful for that journey, but it was a very toxic work environment that grew me into knowing all the things and being able to run the office the way that I run it now and learning how to really grow people.
Yes.
When you're in a toxic work environment, I've learned a lot through title being in that environment, but I also learned after getting out of it and stepping back, it's like, oh, you don't treat people that way.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's, we don't throw files at people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, I would, I could, I'm dyslexic. And so, draft up the documents and so forth. And I would, the know thyself. I would check it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. you know, and just that Social Security number maybe on that deed, I would just flip the number. And I mean, there were times that, you know, the attorney would come in front of me, in front of the clients, throw the papers at me and tell me I got it wrong.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that, you know, I learned a lot. But now I know that, you know, and all behaviors learn. So I kind of was in management in that office and running that office and so forth. And when I tell you, I treated them the same way. So, you know, coming here, and I worked for a title company here and learned a lot and how you manage people. Their culture was amazing. I had a phenomenal time there. And so, and learned that you don't treat people that way.
Yeah.
You grow people. You love people. You know, so definitely I am so thankful for the journey. But it was definitely rough. But I learned a lot.
Well, it's interesting. It's like last week we talked about ZB Electric, or we were talking to Zach from ZB Electric, and that's actually one of the things that he mentioned was when he's like started his thing, it was like, I've seen that, I've been part of, and so now I want this type of environment. Right. So I see that is like the environment that you're building, because I even had the opportunity whenever.
Definitely try, so that definitely warms my heart.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're in it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then of course, I know with you coming and you being out and then being in it, you probably see that.
Yeah.
Just that warms my heart, because that's definitely my goal.
Well, yeah. Well, that's one of the coolest pieces whenever. So when I first started, you know, with Harrison, my part of being the coach, trainer, consultant, whatever title you give that, was having that outside perspective to go, okay, what's this person doing? How's this? What is the, like, that way, you know, you can see where the gaps and the holes are.
Right.
And a lot of companies, when I step in, the operations can be amazing, but it's usually it's amazing because you have like an amazing person that's doing everything, and in many ways that was you. You were wearing a lot of different hats when I first started, and y'all made some transitions, and yet that was probably one of the coolest pieces was whenever I like stepped in and you were showing me your systems then training person, and you do the, like with Jennifer, you did the I do it, you do, we do it, you do it, right? And so that was I was very impressed, because that to me is, a lot of times we used to call it like seagull management, where you come in and you do that and you leave. Right. And I do want people that I hire the work that knows more than me and is better than me in that role. But if you don't, you got to pour into them, right? And so, and everybody raves about Jennifer, which we do. She was amazing before the role. Yes. And I think because she was amazing and because of the things that you put into place, it like, you know, almost like week 2, week 3, week 4, it was like she'd already been there forever.
She'd been there for months.
Yeah.
You know, and just being, so I definitely hope that the system and the training and moving and giving is, you know,
the tools to be successful. Yeah.
Successful. And she's definitely just A+. Player. You know, she's another A player. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really cool piece. And so tell me, like, so you mentioned, because like you, I think I went to, I went to 3 different, like I didn't move until I was 14. And then from freshman year to senior year, I went to 3 different high schools. Okay. And so
consistent.
How did, like, so what was, because again, to go from, like, I'm born in South Louisiana, graduate from Mangum of all places.
And lived in Atlanta in between.
Oh, okay.
I was a builder, so
Which part of Atlanta?
Alpharetta.
Okay. Do you have any idea how close that is to Rome, Georgia? I don't.
No, I'm not sure.
Okay. Just because right after high school, I was in Rome for like 3 or 4 months. So I think that's funny. I didn't know that you were like,
So
okay.
Like just so. Yeah. Born and raised, born in Houma, Louisiana. Parents divorced when I was very young. I was probably a year old. Economy bottoms out. My dad's a contractor. He's a builder. They owned Burns Construction in Houma with his 2 brothers that were big builders. They owned hotels and developments and, you know, building all the place where the economy bottoms out. So I'm going into the 1st grade. Don't know what year that was, but you know, something like that. So one of the brothers has to move. And so my dad was divorced with 3 kids, and the other brothers were married with kids, and they were more stable. So my dad says, it'll be me. So it was either going to be Florida or it was going to be Atlanta.
Okay. And to like restart the company or to expand type thing. Okay.
And so my dad then, you know, we choose Atlanta, it's Alpharetta. And so we moved there. going into second grade. So
Okay.
I spent second and third grade there with my dad. My sister and I, we lived there with him.
Do you just have one sister?
I have one sister,
Okay.
one brother.
Okay.
Yes. And so lived in Alpharetta second and third grade. He opens First Magnolia Homes, and then he becomes a big builder in Atlanta. And so then from there, we move to fourth and fifth grade. I moved to Church Point, Louisiana.
Okay.
Down south. My mother is living there. We go live with my mother. So my sister wants to live there. So the rule was wherever my sister went, I had to go. So I've spent fourth and fifth grade in Church Point. Then she graduates high school. And so they graduate high school. My dad comes in for graduation. I have to leave. Stripped again for my mother. I leave and go. And I'm in Atlanta 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Very strict home. You know, my stepmother love her. She's amazing. She didn't have any children. She did the best she could. You know, she put a lot of rules into play. I couldn't even watch TV or talk on the phone. I mean, I had a list that said what time my bed had to be made and all those kinds of things. So, but again, she was doing what she thought she was doing. Right?
That's right.
I mean, raising, you know, we use those tools with what we think we know, and then she since then apologized.
Oh, yeah.
And so good. So,
yeah.
So spend 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade there. I come to visit my mother in Mangum, Louisiana. Going into my
Shout out to our Mangum people.
Yes. Going into my 10th grade year, and called my dad and said, I'm not coming back. You know, 15, and I said, I'm staying with my mom.
Yeah.
So my mom was married to Tommy, which Tommy Wilson, Laney Wilson, Tommy and Laney Wilson's dad, Brian, his father, which
Okay.
was Buck and Tommy were brothers.
Okay.
So-
Okay. So we're somewhat related to Lady Wilson.
Yes. And so my mother lived there with them 10th, 11th, and 12th grade in Mangum. And then my stepdad was a sewing machine mechanic, and he was phenomenal and amazing, and he fell ill with cancer. Day I graduated, and he lived 9 months.
Oh, wow.
And,
That's hard.
You know. So
Yeah.
very, very hard. And so that's how I ended up in Mangum. And then I had dance schools. That was my
Yes.
dance schools. That was my passion. Like,
Yeah.
it was, you know, when you asked me what I wanted to do when I wanted to grow up, you know, what I wanted to be when I grew up, I was like, I want to be a dance teacher. Like that was my dream. And it was short-lived, and it was amazing. It was wonderful, and it served me during that time. And then was married, had Christian, my oldest son, and then from there...
Who just had a baby.
I'm a booyah. I'm a grandma. I just got this girl last night. Grandbabies are the best because you can love them and care, and then you can say, here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she's phenomenal. I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Best baby. She doesn't even cry hardly. But anyway, so from there, married Chris, and then we had Christian, and then we divorced. And so I had no family here. You know, at that point, my stepdad had passed away. My mom is... love her. She's now moved down south once he passed, you know, because her dad was there. So we had no family there. So when Chris and I divorced, I moved to Lafayette, and that's when I began my title career. I can remember not really begging for a job, but you know, needing a job, and it began. I would take donuts, king cakes, biscuits, whatever, to realtors, to lenders, to, you know, all things that were title. You know, I was calling on people, and I was working like part-time. I mean, you know, I was making $10 an hour, you know.
Yeah.
It was a struggle. But then from there, they ended up needing me, and then I ended up moving into the reception role, and then from being a receptionist full-time, and then just, that's how my title career began.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
typing title commitments and reviewing title, and just, you know, learning that side.
Yeah.
And then I just from there kind of worked my way up.
Yeah. Continue to grow.
You know, but
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's like, sometimes it's sticking out in the toxic, which I don't necessarily, you know.
I'm thankful for the toxicity that has made me the human that I am.
Yeah.
And I say toxicity, maybe that's the wrong choice of words. Just, you know, bad leadership in that role, but that was all they know.
Yeah.
All behaviors learned. Consequences shape behavior. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's all learned, but you can reverse it.
That's right. Well, and it's what you're exposed to. I shared about my oldest brother. You know, everybody, you know, used to, at least sometimes still, but like everybody would meet him and they were like, oh, he's kind of, you know, he's kind of a butthole, or they would have this thought about him, and it's not who he is, but he was raised in construction, and that's how they did it. And so, no, you know, he wasn't exposed to anything else. So I do,
You know, that's what you know, right?
Yeah.
So when you step out and go into, you know, from all you know is this toxic, dark side, and then you step into this light, and then it's like loving people and culture and like learning that like, oh wait, you're supposed to grow people and love on them and teach them things so they can move up in the world, and you can buy back your time. Now buy back your time and do all those things. It's like, oh wow, that's it. You know, so just
well, and it's
for the journey.
Yeah. Well, and it's I think that's the cool part is we can be thankful for every piece because sometimes we are who we are despite of, and sometimes because of. And I love the Maya Angelou quote that says, once you know better, do better. Mm-hmm. And I think we talked about that a lot about, I think in bold, we used to, Diana Kokoska taught us that people, and I'm going to misquote this, but like all of our frustration comes from our expectations of others. So if I think that you're supposed to do this, then that frustrates. Versus
in my house constantly.
Yeah. So like let's have that conversation and discover like what is your belief, what is mine, how do we create a win-win and that type of thing, because it's like that unmet expectation. And then also that people typically are doing the best they can with either what they know or what they've been exposed to. And so sometimes we do have an opportunity to say like, you're behaving this way, and you have to have care and candor. So if I haven't showed them, if they don't believe that I care about them, then I can't give them the candor that they may need of like that's not beneficial for you, or it's hurting you and other people. But if you have that care and candor, you can say like that has got you here, but let's talk about a different way, because most people do, like you said, they had learned this is how you do it. No, they hadn't been exposed to anything else, and sometimes I think
you're in it, and you don't really, like I said, you're in it, and then you step out of it, and then you look back and you self-reflect. Yes. Like, what was I doing? What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And, constantly. I mean, I'm so grateful that I, at 44 years old, have figured it out.
Yeah.
And I always say I was never comfortable in my skin until I was 40, because I had to reinvent myself. Mm-hmm. Very just toxic trauma childhood things, even though going through counseling and repairing those things, but yet self-reflecting and just kind of like once you're on the other side, I look back and I'm like, I'm so thankful, because, people go through their whole lives. They're 70 and 80 years old. Love my mother dearly, but she's in a nursing home, been there 12 years, and I don't even know. She still self-reflect.
Yeah.
So there's people that go through their journey through their whole life.
They don't.
Never do that self-discovery. And so I'm so thankful for the trauma, the toxicity, the things, and, some trauma that I've caused for people that I hope that they forgive me for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, I always feel like we're always going to be the hero in some people's story, and we are the not demon, but we're the devil. Yeah. But we are the devil in some people's story. Yeah,
it's very true. And I know that also one of my favorite things that Jay Shetty. I don't know if anybody. I love him. I follow him. He's awesome, and he, is just like your trauma is not your trauma. It's someone else's trauma. Mm-hmm. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's when I had to like really. When I heard that, I was like, okay, so the trauma that I've caused people wasn't my trauma.
Yeah.
It was somebody else's trauma.
Yeah.
Because the trauma that they had caused me, and just, going through, just self-reflecting and learning that. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's funny that you mentioned that. Well, no, that's perfect. That's exactly why we're in our comfy, like we're having that. But that, as you say that is one of the things that I am actually, and I know sometimes, and everything can be, you get that pendulum, and sometimes things can be overcorrected, and yet I love that people are now, parents are now teaching their kids about autonomy and about expressing their emotions and things like that, because growing up for us, and probably for you because I'm 42, so it was like, shut up and be a kid. Right. Why are you crying? You're fine. It's not
that, or like just totally not even talking about and having uncomfortable conversations with your
Sure
that I am so transparent. Have those uncomfortable conversations. Had it with my daughter the other day, and she's like, Mom, stop. And I'm like, nope, we're gonna have this conversation.
Yeah.
Talk about it. It's gonna be uncomfortable, and you got to go in for the repair.
Yes.
Too, so if there is some trauma that I may have caused, or
that's right,
like that, you've got to go in for the repair. And I really definitely try to even do that in the office. At times, even when I was training Jennifer, I'll share that story. I was training Jennifer, and it was just trying to. It's hard letting go of that, even though I needed it. I was
yeah.
Like you're training her and letting go. And I had that moment where like I tried to control in a way that was not a leader. And not that I was, rude or ugly. And like, she didn't even, like when I came in the next day and was like, hey, I want to tell you that I am so sorry for what I did yesterday. I realized that I was trying to control from this side and I wasn't letting you control.
Yeah.
So I want to apologize. And I can remember, she was like, well, thank you. I really did. And I said, no, I'm serious. I saw it. I don't know if you did, but I just want to apologize.
Yeah.
And so I think that I really definitely, in those moments, I may fail when I'm training or leading.
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely try to self-reflect, come back and say, I'm sorry that I did that.
Yeah.
Or I could have done this better.
That's right. This is what I've learned since
I want
then.
my staff to be able to do that.
Yeah.
To be able to come to me and same thing,
Oh yeah. Well, and that's funny. I had this conversation with Harrison, and I told him, I was like, I'm going to talk to Amy about this too, because very much like my job is to come in as the consultant or the coach. I get very invested in everybody, like having the best and doing the best, and sometimes I will completely step outside of like my role into somebody else's. And I remember, I'm sure this has happened more than once, but the one that glaringly showed up for me, you were on the way to vacation. We were talking about a new program and it was all lined out. And then you were like, when I have people sign this. And in my head, I want to be like, well, you're headed on vacation. Like, we can help you with that. So I go into like, well, is that blah, blah, blah. And after I get off the phone, I'm like, you know what? Like, that was me getting into her role. Like, the only question I should have asked is does that work for you? You're headed on vacation. And then you're grown up. You'll say it will or it won't. And right. And so I was telling Harrison this because I've done the same thing to him. And then you got to go, crap. Like, that wasn't my spot.
Right.
And so I don't know if you've seen The Bear by chance. So it's for anybody that watched The Bear. The first season, you're going to be like, why is she having me watch this? The second season, you're going to go, I get it, especially if you're in leadership. It's a series.
Okay. Netflix or?
Hulu.
Okay.
And so the guy's a chef. His brother has died or committed suicide, and so he's come to like take over and make it a success. That's what he wants, but he's struggling with his demons, and of course his brothers passed away, and he feels a certain way about that. And there's another guy, like, it's just everybody's messy, right? It's just that's all they've ever been exposed to.
Right. That's all they know. Right.
That's all they know. And he and another lady, they call each other chef, right? He and the other lady, that she's got a lot of talent, but she's not quite where she needs to be yet or whatever. But she's like coming up fast, and they ended up in the kitchen, everything's running, and he's real ugly to her or something, and then vice versa, and then she walks out. And anyways, all this to come to fruition where he's telling her about this story, and I'm like, I love it. And he said, so and I wanted to become part of my practice with you, with anybody that I work with, our coaches. Whenever he was explaining to her, he said, so like when the kitchen's all crazy and everything's, if I'm stepping on your toes or I am like elevating my voice, if I'm, and he says it a little differently like that. That's my takeaway. But he said, I'll know that I'm being too much, or vice versa if you do this. Or if I catch myself, I'll do this, which is like, I'm sorry in sign language.
Okay.
And I thought, that's so cool. If we had some type of cue to say, like, hey, that's my lane.
And I have never even seen this. And
so,
me coming from having some trauma and some things and working through some things. And like, if I'm at a 10, I need to come down, and vice versa. We have this little, like Calabunga dude. I don't know why.
Yeah. Hey, but it just, whatever works, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's like whenever people are with us.
That's right. That's right.
From it, it's just like, so now everybody knows what we're doing.
Yeah. But it's it
works for us. And I'm like, ooh, I gotta come down.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Sorry. And it makes you just.
Yeah, well, and doing it in such a way, so like I'm very much like you've mentioned sometimes you're like, I'm so loud. I'm loud.
Right, I'm loud.
You're not a lot. You're loud. It's different. No.
I think I know when to be a lot and when not to be. I've definitely tried to scale.
Yeah.
Because I am. Yeah. I'm just very passionate.
That's
whatever I'm doing.
Yes, and sometimes. And for me, at least, sometimes my passion can come across.
Melinda and I mimic. She's passionate about it.
Yeah.
Passionate. And so that spastic, loud, a lot. 'Cause
Yeah.
we share that. We say that all the time. That's what we do.
Well, I think like when that, and sometimes my passion can come across as domineering, or telling somebody, and of course loud. So, but what frustrates me, because a lot of times I've had people in my life, like when I get loud, they'll be like, shh, hush it. And I'm like, don't shush me. And if we can come, because I feel like that's almost like, you're not my mama.
That's like when you like, hey, you have no voice.
That's right. Yes. Because I had to fight through that. Like in my, like,
I mean, that could be a trigger for.
Oh yeah. Well, and like, yeah. Well, like my 20s.
A childhood trauma of like your dad. I don't.
Oh yeah.
Somebody just yelling, "Shut up!" because you're loud, and then.
Yeah. Well, like, so I'm one of 7, but I've got all these brothers, and thankfully, well. My older brothers, absolutely, they were kind of they grew up in the time where kids were seen, not heard. So yes, so some of that. And then whenever I grew up, and so like I'm in my 20s and I came back into the real estate world and I'm working with my brothers, and sometimes because of their trauma, like they were very like, oh, don't say that or da because somebody will take it this way or that way. So it was very much like, be quiet. And so I had to work through, like I got the depression, I got it, but I mean, like I went through, because I'd went from being this very independent person running things in Texas to coming back home and being told like, be quiet and sit.
Like almost want to be, you know?
Yeah.
Like just because you've been.
Well, like you like.
I don't want to say shunned, but that way.
Like, yeah. And interesting enough, and some of it was what they were saying. Some of it was how I interpreted it. Because that was the other interesting thing. It was how I interpreted it for like somebody like they, you know, because sometimes I think somebody can give you advice, but you interpret it a certain way. And like, that's not really the advice they were giving you, but it can. And so I interpreted it like, you don't know enough or you're not enough, so you need to be quiet. Mm-hmm. And there was a bit of people pleasing in there, so it took me a minute to go, wait a minute. Yeah, like, no. Like, and I went to like Landmark Forum. I went to like all these different things, and I started learning, like, no, like what I have to say is important. Now, obviously you pick your time and place,
right?
But I have a voice. I'm going to use it, and
you don't mind.
Yeah, and then you think about like childhood trauma. Like there was definitely some major childhood trauma, and you're like. We tell people, but then kids don't tell people because, it's going to impact these things. And then it's this whole thing.
Right.
So I really had to learn when somebody says shush. Now with that said, I absolutely know, like, so if I get really excited, I get like, cause I get loud and I can't hear it.
I'm loud.
Yeah.
I'm extra loud.
Very loud. Yeah.
Extra loud.
Well, and I'll be going for a while and then I'll hear it. Cause like my brothers asked me one time lately, they're like, do you think maybe it's a hearing thing? And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with my ears. I said, but I'm so excited I can't hear it. And then once I hear it, I'll be like, oh, that wasn't me screaming. I was really excited for you, or I was really excited about this. And most people that know me know that. And so, but I had a friend of mine who I love, but like, we'd be on a plane and we'd be talking. I'd get excited and I'm getting louder and louder. And she's like, shh.
Did you want to punch her?
Yes. And it really was like, no, like she needed to because I was like, you don't want to be screaming in a plane.
Yeah.
And so, but
I think it would have been if she would have said, you're being loud. So she started doing things where she would like joke with me about it, and that helped because it was just a different way of doing it. And then my cousin, we were on, and this is my favorite thing now. We were in, on somewhere on the beach, but we were in our car, and we saw these girls walking down the road, not on the beach, and they were wearing like the ittiest bittiest thing that you could wear. Okay.
And Christy says something, and they hear us, and I start laughing at the girl. Your window is down. So that's my new thing. Like I'm like, your window is down means you're being too loud. But because it was legit down, and so that's their big, like, your window's down. And yeah,
using stuff like that kind of break, yes, because I'll share, like, I always say I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, and there'll be times that, like, because like there'll be times that like I do really good and you won't hear me say it, and then I think there'll be a trigger or something from a trauma, that just, and then for like a couple days I'll say I'm sorry constantly, and I'm like, what are you, and I'll catch, and so backing up to where I worked before I worked here, it's funny because I would say I'm sorry and they would say suck it.
Oh.
And I would just, and so maybe I need to start doing that again. But that helped. It helped me break that. Every time I say I'm sorry, they would say suck it.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
yeah.
And it would just, so maybe I need to come up with something kind of, maybe not that.
But yeah. Well,
not, we would be in front of people.
Right.
Whenever, but it helped. It helped someone.
Well, I think sometimes things can jar you out of it, or sometimes like matter of fact, a client of mine was asking the other day about how do you, he was like, because we're the same behavioral style. So for anybody that's familiar with the DISC, I am a DIC, which is dominant, influential, and C is very compliant. So the DC is always combating with one another.
Right.
So because I want it to be perfect right now, right? Because the D is like right now, and then that doesn't work in real life. And so, but he said, so how do you deal with like when you're binge watching TV and things like that? I said, it's only if it's a problem. And he said, tell me more. And I said, look, I like to watch TV, and I love to wait till the series is already over and then watch the whole thing.
Right.
And there's something about knowing, but like there's a healthy way to do that. And then I watched the entire series of Game of Thrones that lasted, 17 years. I watched it in like 3 weeks while also teaching Bold 3 days a week. And I was in 4 different cities I didn't sleep at all. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. So when I get to where that became a problem. So like, but what it is, and that's what I told him. I said, you actually don't have, because he was like asking about time management. I was like, you don't actually have a time management issue. I said, we got to figure out what that thing is. And we figured out like what you're dealing with that's causing you to escape into that. So that's my trigger, is when I notice that I'm escaping into TV, if I notice that my house is especially dirty or my truck is especially dirty, and I used to just beat myself up about it. And now I'm going, no, that's a trigger, that there's something that I get to get fixed. So like maybe that's with you, but I'm sorry, that might be your trigger to go, there's something that I need to like.
I know what the trigger is. It's when my mother comes visit, because I have, I love her, and I have forgiven her for lots of things, and she comes into my home, and when she does, and twice a year is my limit, but that's a trigger for me. Mm-hmm. So I say I'm sorry. And not a fault of her own. I'm just saying maybe that I'm sorry. It's like maybe always wanting to please her in some kind of form. And then there's that trigger. And then I'm like, I'm sorry. I would say, I'm sorry. Can you give me that candle? I'm sorry. Can you do this? I'm sorry. Can you do that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
noticed that
50 times a day.
Yeah. Well, that's what I noticed it whenever there was, because I haven't heard it lately. It was the transition where you felt like, because when you started bringing in people, and so you were doing like through others. But I think I don't.
You could
maybe you felt like you weren't, because you hadn't taken this yet, and so you kind of felt like,
I know childhood trauma makes me want to control.
Yeah.
Right?
So maybe that's when
you're causing everybody to be miserable around you. I had a counselor tell me one time, about my mother, and I would say, talking about my children, and I would say, okay, well, I got their backpacks all lined up, because I didn't have that organization.
Yeah.
Just because I was put here, but I gotta have their backpack, their lunchbox, their uniform. Don't touch their uniform or their shoes. Everything had to be straight. I mean, it was Christians, Madeline's, Addison's. I mean, do not touch it. If you touched it and there was a shoe come off, I would lose it. And I remember sitting the counselor, and she says, you're trying so hard not to be Sheila. You're creating Sheila.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so,
that's my mother's name, by the way.
Yeah. There is a what you resist persists, and that's huge that she said that to you and you heard it, because sometimes people don't hear it, but that's that overcorrection thing, like that pendulum swinging. But yeah, like that's like, so this is when I work. So like I've got a family member that struggles with addiction, and she has a son, and he always talks about how bad it is. He doesn't like it because he's dealt with a lot of stuff that he shouldn't have had to deal with. And he's always been the one that I've been concerned with. It was going to get into substance abuse as well, mainly because it's like whatever you resist, like you were fighting against so hard not being this way that you inadvertently, he was fighting so hard. And now the other kid doesn't even, it's just sad to say, she's dealt with some stuff she shouldn't have to, but it's like now, I'm not saying that it won't come up in a different way. I don't know that I'm as concerned about her with the substance abuse, and it has showed up with the oldest child, and hopefully early enough that it won't be an issue later. And yet, so I do and I think about my dad smoked, and I remember most of us hating the fact that he smoked. And guess what?
Smoke and all.
Oh yeah, and guess what?
They all smoke except you.
Chuck. Oh no, I smoked for years. Chuck smoked. Benny smokes. I smoked. Mel smoked. So all four of us younger ones all smoked. And
well, they always say the things you don't like about other people are usually the things that you don't like about yourself.
Well, that's because you start resisting it. And well, the thing is, and so like when we're resisting it, I don't know if you've read the book Untethered Soul.
I have it on.
If you have, everybody should read this book Untethered Soul. But it's and it goes back to like that, what you resist persists. So if anything I'm focused on, it's going to come into my world. So if I'm focused, it's almost like, if you think, what's the opposite of love? It's not hate, it's indifference. It's no emotion, right?
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, not even numb, because I think that's an emotion. But like, what is a drink? Do you drink, what's a drink that you don't drink and you don't really like? Pepsi. Bar.
Well, I don't drink Coke, Dr. I can because of the gluten.
Okay, but is there one that you would, like if you didn't have celiac, you would want to drink?
Coffee.
Okay.
I mean, not that coffee's, it doesn't have gluten, just the caffeine.
The caffeine.
Doesn't agree with
it. Okay.
And so I've had
so there are some times where you probably have to, even though you know coffee's bad for you, you still have to go like make a conscious effort not to drink it.
Right.
But let's take Pepsi product. If it was there, you wouldn't have any. It's just like there's no like you don't have to use your willpower against it because it's just indifferent.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. So that's the difference between but once you get to that, if whatever the trigger is or whatever, once you can work your way around it and do everything to where it's just the Pepsi that I could have Pepsi in my house and I'm never going to be I would just, it doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
But if it was Coke is going to be if I decided I'm not going to drink Coke, I would have to fight that every day, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually you cave.
In the house because if it was there,
that's right. So that's where I mean, so that Untethered Soul helps you. That and there's some NLP things that will help you untether from that trauma or that piece, because then it's just like the Pepsi that's just there, but it's not causing you to have to resist it or go toward it. And because I think that's so important for us to realize that if we're resisting something or are having to get our willpower up to go do that thing,
right,
that's still probably, there's an attachment one way or the other. And so that's what comes into is...
It's a very powerful thing. Mm-hmm. So, I can definitely relate to that when I got diagnosed with celiac disease and, having to, it was rough. I went through a depression.
Oh, I imagine. You have to change your whole world.
A Whopper at Burger King and you want to drive through and get some onion rings with some zesty fries because that would be so good right now. You want to go through that drive through and get that, or you want to go eat, fried fish with your friends, and that's when you're hanging out with your friends and eating those things, and
that's right.
Community, you just love it. And so that was hard, and that was a big adjustment.
Well, and I wonder,
I went through a major depression.
I imagine. Well, I wonder too. So, with you mentioned people pleasing. I found that it's hard for me now, not so much, but I remember when I was younger, if we were all going somewhere and let's say that I wasn't eating such and such, I would feel bad. I would maybe even eat it or pretend to eat it because I was they're going to judge me or think that I'm being a certain way.
There's times that I go to restaurants and they're like, oh, you're one of those.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not gluten intolerant. I'm not, this is not a lifestyle choice. This is a necessity.
Yeah,
for me to,
get out of bed. Yeah. So, yeah.
I literally can't get out of bed.
Yeah. So I just, was that a hard, I could just that. Yeah, that to me is so hard.
I just had to be an advocate for myself. modern medicine is wonderful. I believe in integrative medicine. I'm not saying that when you need antibiotics and things like that, do that.
Yeah.
However, I mean,
it's not everything.
The hospital, ER, this, and I was so sick, and not just the stomach issues, it's just the inflammation. At that point, it was attacking my immune system. I was swelling. I had inflammation. I had to be an advocate for myself, and so I started, the witch doctor, the cupping therapy, the fascia blasting, all the things that
Let's go find something that will work. Yeah.
Went into a health food store in Lafayette, and she was like, you need to start with this book. Because I remember I can remember being diagnosed and like getting in the grocery store and looking and going like this.
Yeah.
What's gluten? And so then I bought all these frozen meals, right? I went to Target and I would get these 4 blueberry muffins that are gluten-free, and I would get all these.
And they taste like crap.
They taste like, and they're so expensive.
Yeah.
It just all this stuff. And so go home and I'm just eat that, and I was cooking for my family gluten because I didn't know. I mean, I cook rice and gravy. I'm a Cajun,
Well, that's where you're you're a great cook.
Cooking all that, gumbos and all this stuff. So I would just eat this little frozen meal because I didn't know anything. And then I had high blood pressure, and I'm on 50 milligrams of high blood pressure medicine in the morning and in the night. And so I just had to, and then that medicine makes you feel bad. So it was like this roller coaster of I had this big bag of medicine, and I was taking all this stuff, and I was taking something to sleep and something for mood and something for, to antidepressant and all this stuff. And now I'm on nothing. I take probiotics and I take vitamins.
Yeah.
And I had to be an advocate for myself, and it works.
Yeah. Well, that's I have ADHD, and I also have, I don't think that I got ADHD from trauma. I do know that because people think of ADHD as like squirrel. That is part of it. But ADHD is also, especially with women or girls, because we're late diagnosed, we can't do tasks, and we even people, they're being so clumsy, and then we get in trouble for being clumsy, and then, so it affects your emotional.
Yeah,
so then you have,
and somebody starts screaming at you.
And then you freeze because we have, that's part of, so I don't cry very often. And not that that's a bad thing. I don't. And yet it's interesting that, and maybe that's because growing up with 6 brothers or whatever. And I just always I do have that we'll figure it out vibe.
Right.
And yet whenever I do, it's usually if I'm in an argument, not like a traditional argument, but I had my brother and I got into an argument in Thanksgiving, and this never happens, or rarely. And we were arguing, and I felt attacked because I felt like he was saying that that I had done something malicious, but it was because he didn't understand something. He thought but I got so mad, I couldn't talk, and I started crying, and then of course I get more mad. But that's actually part of the ADHD is it's that I almost get to the point where I can't respond anymore.
Right.
And
the words are here and they just won't come out, and you know what you want to say, but you can't.
Because I didn't know that was I didn't know that was an ADHD thing, and for years. But now I've studied it because I'm an advocate for it, and because I help clients. But it helps me to understand this. And but that was the interesting thing to so important to me, that when you see somebody, we all have stuff. What's sad to me is when somebody's I have stuff, and that's all I can do about it. And I'm no.
You can do something about it.
Well, and the thing is, the whole point of it is it's okay not to know what to do about it, because if you knew, you'd do it. But let's be a seeker. Especially now with Google and YouTube, Google, YouTube, research, talk to this doctor, talk to that person.
That have been through things.
That's right. Attempt it. It didn't work. Let's do something different, right? And so that's one of the things that I see in you, and I really value, is that it's hey, this is what it is. What are some other options? What's the solution? Let's go figure something out. Yeah.
So definitely had to,
Wait, so when you mentioned also, ADHD, dyslexia.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. So how, and then when you talk title work, it's all.
I mean, you obviously muscle memory, you learn things, looking back, if I would have had the support from the parents, and they didn't know. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
I would have had the support from the parents that I needed. I could have been an attorney. I could have been, I just didn't know, and I didn't have that fight. And so I definitely with my children, trying to be an advocate. And it's not that they hired me tutors. They did everything that they knew that they could do. But like, those things they didn't have back then, the things they have now.
That's right.
Doctors that could, I can remember taking a Christian, they have a dyslexia doctor that he tests you for the colors that come through the sun and through the eyes. And like, he tests all these different colored lenses. Like, when it comes in, it could, I think like he had red in this eye and like yellow in this one. And they put these glasses and they were expensive. And so we did that. And I never forget, he had the paper before he did the color testing. He's reading the paper, Christian was reading it. It was very, a word and then a word, it was very, and so he read, I don't remember, it was so many words a minute, right?
Yeah.
So the doctor comes in, he gets this little briefcase out, and he does all the little lenses, and like he figures out what colors, and one was yellow and one was red, and he puts them on, and then he gives you the paper back, and he reads it. And do you know that he looked at me and said, Mama, the words on the paper don't move anymore. Mm-hmm. So, and that happens with me. I don't know if you've ever experienced a text message from me, an email, and I have to read it 5 or 6 times, but I will literally say, how are you doing, Olivia, today? See you at 1 o'clock. And that's what I want to say. And I text you that, and I will still leave out the word the. But I've read it 5 times, and I think that it's there. I think the word the is there. And I look, and then I send the message, and then I'll send it. I'm really bad for like going back.
I always see it after I send it.
Well, now they have the edit button.
Yeah.
So I love that because I'll go back and I'm like, there it is. I forgot. I'll edit and put the. But literally, that is part of dyslexia. People think it's the word flipping.
Yeah.
That, and that is true.
That's some of that and, yeah.
And, I'm going through it with my daughter, getting her tested and so forth. And she's same thing. I see it, and I've tried the colored paper because colored paper works with me. I don't know if you've, like our little THLT information sheet. It's
yeah.
for me. Now, Jade in the office doesn't need it colored, but I have them colored, but like, and I'll highlight something when I'm like typing something from here to take to the computer. I have to take a highlighter because it helps.
Yeah.
Colored paper helps. Like, it just had to be. But anyway,
that's when you learn things
things that like the colored paper. We tried that for my daughter at school. Doesn't work for her.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's the core. Like, you do it. Does that work? Does it not? No. Okay, then what else? You just don't give up. You just keep figuring it out. Yeah.
Like, you'd think it's this way. So I share that story to be like, that's not really how it is.
Yeah.
And so I was a C student. I mean, I had to struggle to.
Well, but that's the.
I had to study. To make C's and D's.
Well, that's what
C's and D's get degrees.
That's right. I've never asked my doctor if he made C's or A's, And I've got a niece that I believe has ADHD. And her dad has it, I have it. She does a lot of the same things that I used to do when I was young. And now at school, she's got great grades. And so a lot of people aren't worried about her. And I'm just like, but this is the thing, is you don't understand how it impacts your emotional, because we are a bit much for maybe a neurotypical. So maybe you don't have the friend because you were too rough, or you were too boisterous, or you were too whatever. And so and like they got a new couch, and like she kept jumping on it, like when she would go to sit down, and I told Benny, I said, look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not diagnosing, I want you to like think about it. I see some things,
right?
And I said, but when she goes and like, jumping on the couch, I said, see, from your perspective, you've told her not to, and she's being disrespectful. And I said that the challenge is the way that memory works with ADHD, it doesn't, the long-term thing, we have a thing. I said, but another thing is if you go to my house, my sister-in-law, like, I didn't know I did this until my sister-in-law pointed out, but I'll take a glass and I'll put it on the counter, and she's like, why did you put it so, like, it's about so our depth perception,
it's about to fall off of
of the counter.
Okay.
Because our depth perception, it's the reason why a lot of people with ADHD, we have mystery bruises where, I don't know, but I'll just randomly run into things, and I get that everybody does.
But that your ADHD and ADD is different than
somebody else's. Yeah.
And
the other thing is, so like, you took dance and you're really big in dance. So, and that's actually something they say for people with ADHD.
That was an outlet for me.
Yeah. Well, it's an outlet, but it also helps you with perception.
Yeah.
So, I did play softball, and I was badass at softball. Badass for like, I wasn't badass enough to go to college, but for, I played varsity when I was a freshman, that type of thing. And yet, but I do have like but so in softball, you can throw me a ball or whatever, and I get the perceptions. That's fine.
Right.
But if I'm walking somewhere, I don't necessarily. I'm not paying it's not about paying attention, but like I'm focused on this, so I don't see this.
You don't see this.
So she'll get excited, and she's talking to her mama, and and I said, like you're looking at it like she made a conscious decision to step. I said, so then she gets in trouble, and I said the problem that you don't realize is that how that's going to impact her. Like it's something that's beyond her control that's going to impact her self-esteem. Now I'm not saying, oh, she's ADHD, let her just slam on your couch.
No, yeah.
There's a difference between helping her identify a trigger or something that will, I do it this way versus, and helping her do that versus you're in trouble.
Right.
And it's just a slight thing. So again, I'm not saying, you're making excuses. Everybody can slam on couches. I'm not.
No, yeah, right.
But there's a difference between figuring out how to help her stop doing that and her being in trouble for doing that. Mm-hmm. Because that's because again, I do it's the conscious decision thing. If I loan you my truck and you get in a wreck, I ain't saying nothing. I'm not a great driver either. Like it happens, life happens. Yes. Your fault, their fault, nobody's fault. Okay. Now there would be different if I found out you got in a wreck because you were going 90 miles an hour in a 50 mile. Yeah. Okay. Well, now you put yourself in a situation that was
not very smart.
Yes. So I think that's the big thing is helping. And that's what I do love about parents these days. And it's not to say that parents in our day were bad or anything. Now, some were, but not everybody. But some, you learn and you do better. And so I think helping kids learn to deal with their emotions at a younger age is great. Most of us don't learn how to deal with our emotions until
too late. Not too late.
Well, but not too late.
But too late of like they've already been through a divorce.
That's right.
And through multiple divorces, like me. Just self-reflection.
Never got married like me because But you're having to.
It's like just wishing that I would have dealt with the trauma and the other dyslexia and those things and had that person to be an advocate for me.
It makes a big
difference.
It does.
But it makes it thankful for the journey.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Sitting anywhere else right
That's right. It's just, and it was
God's plan.
That's right. Well, and it's the sometimes we're put in situations because it's our path, because it becomes our testimony, right? Because I know that I have empathy and I can see something because I walked this path,
right?
And
for me,
so I can help her. That's
for
huge.
Me, that's huge. If I went through the pain and the struggle and fell on my knees. I fell on my knees so many times with wrong choices, but got up and dusted off so my children don't have to. Mm-hmm. Then I'm okay. If I go tomorrow, I did what I needed to do for those babies.
That's right.
And for my grandbaby now. And so breaking generational curses is huge to me.
Yes. And that's the, and it goes right. I love the line again. I know I've said it like 15 times in this podcast about we know better, we do better. And so again, so I don't think it's about because I'm not a big believer in regret. I'm like, did we learn something?
Right.
Yeah. Now, do I wish that I wouldn't have hurt that person? Do I wish that I wouldn't have? Yeah, but guess what? We're all human. We're going to screw some stuff up. We're going to do some good stuff. Absolutely.
People hurt people on the other side of it and realize that's why that hurt people. Okay, that's why she did that.
Yeah.
I did that.
Well,
or that's why.
Yes.
And then it's...
And giving people graces,
and grace.
Yeah, the best compliment I've ever had in my entire world, and I've got to do better. But the best compliment I had in my entire world, my friend Kathy and my sister-in-law Amber were talking about somebody or something, and again, neither one of them are ugly, but they were talking about something, and I offered a different perspective about it, and Kathy goes, "You know what, Amber, I've never heard her say anything negative about somebody." And Amber's like, "I've never heard that either." And I thought, that is the best compliment anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm going, they probably haven't, but Amber's told me since I was, that's right. But Amber, because everybody's human. I wish that I never talked bad about anybody. And yet that was one of my biggest compliments, because I do. I think even that person that is the jerk that does XYZ, I go,
but do you know his story?
That's right.
Let's help.
Yeah, I know,
that's a fixer in me.
Yeah, that's
to that, but not.
Yeah,
I'm definitely. a fixer and being codependent. There's totally.
Oh yeah.
And there was a time I was codependent, and had to that way. So I will take the fixer over that.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn to let that go and be the fixer in a loving way.
That's right.
Giving grace to people and helping people and sharing my story to be able to help them to self-reflect.
Yeah. Well, and that's, and then I also think it's like, this is the one, for me, and I've talked to my brothers about this so much, but I'm like, you have to have the care and candor. So let's say that you're doing something that I don't like. But if I have it, and I don't mean like in a work environment, but just even let's say I've got a family member that is 3 cousins removed, whatever. We don't see each other very often, or whatever, or I don't see them very often. I'll use this. So my older brothers, when they see, and most of the time they're picking, but not always, but they'll see like some of the younger generation and they're like, don't like how they're dressing or how their hair is. And they'll say something to them. And I'm like, no. I said, if you haven't created the care, like if you're not hanging out with that kid, if you're not doing stuff with them, don't try to teach them. Don't judge them. Don't teach them. I said, because
know them.
Yeah, because at that point it's not. That's right. Well, because you're not teaching them. You're just
your beliefs and thoughts onto them.
That's right.
Expectations.
Yes, and
Myron Katie teaches you that. Like,
yeah. So like that's where like that care candor.
Expectation, so you don't walk in mad or angry.
That's right. Yes. Well, in creating it. So like I had a nephew that I have a nephew. He's 14 maybe at the time, 13 or 14. And he was downstairs. He walked upstairs and he said something. Oh, I had told him downstairs, because this is the other thing, is you don't know the whole situation. I told him something downstairs. He comes upstairs. He's folding, and he brought the clothes to me because I'd said, bring these up. I'll fold them and then you go do something else. Well, he gets upstairs and hears the clothes, and 2 of the adults said, "Fold them." And by the way, what I had said, and he said something back, and it was rude. But with that said, just because I know him, he didn't know that he sounded like his brain was already on the thing that he was going to go do that I had already like told him to go do.
Right.
So when he was like, I don't even remember what he said, but I do know, like for a kid to adults, especially adults that are like, you have to respect me, he came off rude. And so he walked out and they were both like irate. But of course, neither one of them said anything, but because I have the relationship, I cleaned it up with him. I said, guys, I don't think he intended to be rude. Yes, it was rude, but I had told him like that I was going to take care of this because I wanted him to go do that. And they're like, he still shouldn't have said it. True. And his mind's already on something else. He's got 2 adults that he's not very close with. They're both not yelling, but he probably perceived it as, and you just say something.
Right.
Well,
everybody's spinning, right?
Everybody's spinning.
Nobody really knows.
And nobody's going to,
this story.
That's right.
Story,
and so I went downstairs in a little bit, and I said, hey, thanks for doing that, do this, and then I want you to be aware of how that came across. And I had that conversation. I said, so you probably need to clean it, or I said, you need to clean it up with them. And he was like, I didn't even mean, I was like, I get it. I said, 100%, I didn't think that you did, but I was able to like have a conversation with him so he could see it. But you can only do that if you're coming from, you have some type of relationship with him, and then the care of, because he needed to understand how he came off,
right. Whether
he was right or not. We live in a world with people. We have to understand how he came off and how do we correct it. Now, not correcting it from I'm sorry I did bad, but going, hey, Aunt Paige, Uncle Avery, I realize how I came across. That wasn't my intent. I apologize for being rude. Not, to say, he didn't have to apologize for what he said, but I apologize if that came across as rude. That was not my intent. That is right. But so to me, that's where, now let's say that was a kid that I didn't meet till that day.
Right.
It's just what it is, because
right.
I don't have the relationship to do that.
Right.
So I think that's a huge piece of like the care and candor. And when you have care, you can have the candor to say, like, even to the point of, don't do that. Right. Because now they know that that's not a personal attack. That is, there's a reason behind that, but you got to have that care to have that candor. And I think so often our generation of parents, and then
Especially
or the older,
even before.
Yeah, like the generation before, the way like my older brothers were raised, it's like in their 50s. It was kids are to be seen and not heard.
Because I was going to say, because my husband's 52.
Yeah.
They're 53. Yeah. So, just the same thing. Expectations. We have that conversation constantly. That's why we have this.
Yeah.
It's just expectations that and I'm to fault too.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I have to we talk through it. And so I'm so thankful to have that open, to be able to discuss it. It's like drop the expectation and then you won't be mad.
That's right. Yeah. Like,
You won't
so.
be mad if there was you thought it should be this way and I thought it should be this way. And then now we're fighting over the way that the weeds should be pulled up outside.
Yes.
Because I have an expectation. You have an expectation. And this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, learning.
Yeah, picking your battles too, and like
Dropping
what
expectations.
Yeah, I had
nothing you want.
Yeah, when my nephew lived with me, it was so funny, and it's awesome to have people in your life that can see things that you maybe can't see in the moment. I was when my nephew was living with me, he had some behavioral issues. He's 20 now. I'm super proud of him, and but at one point he was doing what I thought was a dumb decision, and for school, and I was like insisting he do the way I want him to do. And because I knew he was going to regret the decision. So he had been held back. Before going back to the public school, we had him take a test, and they said he was right on the cusp, so we can go ahead and put him in 8th grade, or we can put him in 7th grade, but he's going to be a year behind. And I was like, because I knew we would do tutors, we would do whatever. I was like, let's go 8th grade. And he was like 7th. And I knew it was because he liked a girl in 7th grade. Well, in 7th grade, you're only going to like the girl for this long. Well, he dug his heels in. He's like 7th. And I'm like, he is going to so regret this. So everything in me wanted to push him to 8th. And so we're in counseling, we're like the whole bit. And my friend Kathy said, Olivia, at this point, you're trying to keep, because I was like, how, he's going to be behind. He's not going to want to finish high school. Now he's in college. I'm already in college.
You're spinning,
yes.
right?
And my friend Kathy goes, Olivia, you're already 10 years out to college, but right now your goal is to ensure he don't go to juvie or jail, right? And he's like, so is this going to get you closer to that fight? And I was like, no, okay. And it was very easy to step back, become unattached to that. And so, but yeah, it was so funny, but I'll find myself, because I'll be worrying about 10 years from now. Well, who,
that just gets you spinning, and the anxiety, and then now
and then how am I talking to him?
10 years, and then now you and him are each other's throat. And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Step back. We're in this moment, right?
Yes.
Figure out this one thing.
Yes.
We can do this.
That's right. And it was, so it's always so it's always interesting. So you need those people around you that can see a different perspective. And it's not even about taking their advice, tell you.
People that see the different perspective but won't say it.
Yeah. Well,
walk through it.
That's right. Well, and to say it also in such a way, like she did a great job of asking me the question so I could see a different perspective versus somebody else being telling you and being like, you're wrong. Well, that didn't help. That won't help the situation. Not if you already feel like this. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was just always constant, and even through the other managers that managed. And then, like I said, when I took the control, I did the same thing, and it's just looking back, I'm like, so sorry.
That's we learn.
You learn?
Yeah,
we
learn. So I've enjoyed this conversation. If you're a real estate agent and you are, or you're getting your license and you're thinking about real estate, Amy is your. Talk with her. We do have some spots open at THLT that. Because it is a small boutique type brokerage, and that is the intent. And this is the interesting, small in people, as far as because we run it as a team, but large in numbers. Because 450, 480 houses sold last year. This year we've already done 216. That was by the end of June. So there's more closings now.
Been more with 41.
Yeah.
The month of
Yeah, there's 80 pendings or something like that right now, or close to 80 plus pendings right now.
Yesterday. We had 14 closings yesterday.
Yeah.
But we don't just are going to go to work this weekend.
That's right. Well, and so you're looking at that is I know that there are offices that have 100 agents that don't have that many closings.
Different.
So we're 100% different.
We want it to be your career. We want to love you through it.
We want everybody, our goals are everybody to make $100,000 plus, right. So anyways, if you're interested, you talk with Amy. She'd be happy to have a conversation, a coffee, 100%. And see if we're a fit, because we're not going to be a fit for everybody, and everybody's not going to be a fit for THLT. And yet,
I talk to people.
Have a great combo.
We just talk, and meet each other and have coffee, and then we decide this is not a fit, and then sometimes we decide that it is a fit.
That's right, and sometimes it's fit for later.
That's right.
But yeah, so but I really did enjoy talking with you. So well, and so we're getting our battery. Connor saying wrap it up. So I did look. So this is our episode 14. So thank you for being here, episode 14, and this will drop Thursday. And so Connor, thank you so much. And let's practice. So we got to do let's go. And
Let's go.